Welcome to Shifting Impressions, Conversations with the Realm of Beings, with me, Gretta Chamberlain, and the Realm of Beings. Shifting Impressions, which is one of the vehicles that supports the transmission of the Realm of Beings, is here to assist you in delving into your being by providing numerous topics and discussions for you to intake as you deepen your connection with your inner world. Shifting Impressions is here to assist you in strengthening yourself as you excavate to understand your true nature. Join us today and learn to shift your mindset, shift your thoughts, and shift your focus to recreate your life and produce a new you. Shifting Impressions starts now.
Welcome to Shifting Impressions, Conversations with the Realm of Beings. I'm Leigh, and I'm here with Carol and Gretta, and as always, the Realm of Beings. And we are very happy to be on Transformation Network every Friday at 11 a.m. Eastern Time, 8 a.m. Pacific. And of course, you know, you can find us on your streaming service of choice. These conversations will help you examine your life and your creation of reality to see what shows up, what you can do with it, maybe how you can consider making some improvements or changes. Every week we discuss a quotation that was downloaded by Gretta from the Realm of Beings. And then at the final segment of the podcast, the Realm of Beings gets to weigh in. Before we get to our quotation for today, Carol would like to make some announcements of where you can find Gretta. You can find her live and in person soon in the tri-state area. Carol?
Yes, we are very happy to announce that Gretta will be in Brooklyn at the end of October, the 27th to the 29th. It's going to be called the New Life Expo. It's at the BK Loft 26, which is at 153 26th Street. And I'm sure you can Google that or find it on the website. So it's a great chance to meet Gretta in person. She'll give you mini readings and she'll have some wonderful lectures that you should really be part of listening to. And looking forward to seeing you there. Thank you, Leigh.
Thanks, Carol. So yes, if you're nearby Brooklyn and you can make it, Gretta would love to see you there. So this week, listeners and ladies, we will be discussing the quotation, "You create people in your life who support where you are at the unconscious level." So where would we like to start unpacking that today? I guess we have to thank those people for showing up, maybe as our own barometer of where we are. Firstly, if we can recognize that.
I would agree with you. I think that really that first part, you create people. We don't think of ourselves as creating anything but what we experience, for those who understand that they create their own reality. But, and then there's the law of attraction. At this point, we're not looking at the law of attraction, we're looking at creation. Because before you can attract something to you, you've got to create it. So that's the first step. So you create the people, literally, that you want to come into your life to support you where you are at the unconscious level. We're not dealing with the subconscious, we deal with the unconscious level. You know, so somebody, you wonder, well, why did this person come into my life? You want to examine and think about, well, where are you at that brought that person to you, that you created the need for that person in your life. And usually it's always for lessons.
And we also find that we're attracting the same person or creating the same person over and over again, maybe in a different physical guise, but technically it's the same person. We call that looping. And generally it indicates that you're still not learning the lesson that you're meant to learn, which is why you keep creating the same person and events over and over again. Because your unconscious is so strong, you have to convince it that you've learned your lesson. And I think that's where we struggle sometimes. Gretta, I've spoken to you about this many times. It's very easy to say, this is what I want to create. It's another thing to actually create it.
Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, but that looping thing is really important because it's not that you have to have the actual person, the same person over and over again, but the same type of person over and over again. I've known people to experience in relationships, they've attracted their father. Females have they've gone through certain challenges with their fathers. Fathers have left, have abandoned, whatever, however they perceive it to be. But then they go out and they're very attracted to this other person. And they're going, oh, this is my twin flame. This is, oh, I found the love of my life. And they don't realize that they've really have developed another relationship, but it's with their father through this other person. So you can bring people to you that represent other people that you're no longer interacting with. You can have a boss that maybe you didn't get along with, and you're going to turn around and have another boss that represents the same one that you left behind.
Gretta, what is a good way for listeners to understand what that means about being at the unconscious level? I think maybe some newcomers don't quite understand that verbiage. Could you, exacerbate on it a little bit?
Well, what it is that the unconscious is one aspect of the force. And I know here we think that each one of us has our own unconscious. Like I have my unconscious, Leigh has hers, and Carol, you have yours. But in actuality, there's only one unconscious. And we're sharing all of that. All of us are sharing the same unconscious, which is the force. Some people have written that, well, the unconscious holds everything. Or they'll say the subconscious holds everything. But what they really mean is the unconscious is what holds everything. Literally everything. I mean, if you belched, it holds that. It holds every experience that you have ever had. It holds every thought. It holds every emotion. And not only for you, but for everything that's in existence. So we're not even really just talking about human people here on this planet, but we're talking about individuals who might live on a planet that we've never seen before or heard of. They might from another universe that they're coming from, but the force through its unconscious aspect of itself knows everything, sees everything. That's why some religions say omnipotent, omniscient. You'll find that one of the in Islam, if I'm correct, has 99 names for God, and one of them is omniscient. Omnipotent is another one, and so that the force is that which created God, which we call God. Okay. So it's a very, very, well, the only thing I can say is that it's all knowing because it knows everything. It created everything. It manifested us. It manifested a blade of grass. There's so many things that are interacting and communicating with each other. A good example are the cells inside of our bodies. They communicate with each other. They communicate with us. They hear our communications with them as well. So that's what I mean by it. It's the all-knowing, knows everything. It creates everything, knows everything.
So Greta, if we're all sharing the same unconscious or the force, how does one individual person, such as you, myself, Leigh, how does our understanding change or improve on any of that?
Well, it's because after we get to a certain point, the first step is going to be, the first point is going to be to understand that you create your own reality. Everything that personally happens to you, you create it yourself. If you stubbed your toe, that's you. If you had an automobile accident, that's you. Your part of the accident is your creation. The other part of the other person is his or her creation. But everything that personally happens to you, you have created. That means if somebody says to you, oh, I love you dearly, then you created to hear that. You created to hear that person tell you, oh, I love you dearly. If somebody says something very derogatory and they say, well, you don't look good today, you look fat to me. You know, you might take that as a derogatory statement, but you have to understand that you created the person to say that to you. Nothing can come to you without you creating it first. That's one way to look at it. Nothing, I don't care what it is.
And the creation is taking place on an unconscious level.
Yes, it can be. Yes, I would say so at the unconscious level, because one example I use is how many people ask to have cancer. You've never heard of anybody say, give me cancer or give me a debilitating disease. You've never heard of anybody say that, and you probably never will. But the point is that they still experienced it. So how did they do that? They did that by way of their thoughts and their emotions and by way of the unconscious, because the unconscious cancer is a form of little hurts, holding on to little hurts, regardless of what type of cancer it is. So that means that the unconscious is aware that you're holding on to these little hurts. And our whole thing inside this reality is lessons. So that's a lesson for us to learn, not to hold on to little hurts. Not to.
And what suggestion is there to release all these things? Because, you know, we say words and we say affirmations, and yet occurrences or loops might keep occurring. So how can we nip that in the bud, so to speak?
Well, what happens with that is that you have not, as we stated earlier, you have not learned the lesson. So then you begin to loop in it, and you'll do it again and again and again and again. I had a personal loop myself that lasted for 65 years before I really realized I was in a loop, and then started to get rid of it. So a loop has no, time limitation to it. Now how you would change it, there's so many ways. I know once, I think someone asked me, one of you asked me that question before, and I said it can be very simple. You can just say, I don't want this experience anymore, and be determined that you don't want it. Or you can use some of the methods that we gave. We gave the QDR and we gave the QDR block. Those are two other methods. The QDR is, I release all emotions and thoughts that support me in creating and maintaining whatever it is you want to get rid of. Like, let's say it's anger. So I release all emotions and thoughts that support me in creating and maintaining anger. That's the only time you say what you what it is that's a challenge is in that QDR. Affirmations are only about being very positive and affirming what you want. The other part to that QDR, which stands for quick replace, quick displace replace, comes I love myself unconditionally.
And that specifically is the replace. And that's the most important part of that QDR, because that's the ultimate lesson, is to love yourself unconditionally.
Right. I know Leigh is kind of quiet. I know that means that she's really thinking and thinking and thinking about it. So Leigh, what's going on?
The little wheels are turning.
Yeah,
Well,
I know.
I was just sitting here thinking that I've been really fortunate to create a lot of wonderful teachers in my life and books in my life for things to, come my way and maybe broaden my understanding. And, that's, I feel if we're creating our reality, then I love those creations because, we're here to expand and, learn new things. And, I wanted to maybe bring in like the point of, a lot of times we have perhaps maybe an unfavorable view of this word unconscious, right? We say if people are maybe doing things quote unquote badly, like, oh, that person is just unconscious, and I'm conscious, right? But I mean, what is, consciousness, right? It's being able to have like some kind of discernment, right? Like to be able to look at something and intake it and understand, why it's there, right? And, these loops and things, I don't know, I just want to put maybe a different spin on it. These loops that we have, it's merely maybe, this kind of, if we can view our life like a book with chapters, and, the emotions maybe are, chapter titles that we have. And, when you're reading, you come along with, like, if it's a good story, that story is rife with, conflict and intrigue and things that are happening, right? And it makes us want to keep reading along and figuring out the unfolding of the story, right? But maybe these loops in our life are just stories that we haven't yet completed. So we put the book down because we say we don't want this emotion or we don't want this feeling, and it just goes, left on the side. But because through our life experiences, because that's maybe something that's not resolved, will show up again, for our understanding and for our enrichment.
Absolutely. I think one thing that comes along with that is we need to encourage ourselves to learn the lessons, to identify the lessons. What am I supposed to be learning? Ask yourself, what am I supposed
It's like
to
that
learn?
why question, right?
Absolutely.
That's like so important, like the why, why is this happening? And like the unconscious, and this is, known or whatever, it encompasses so many things. This form that we inhabit has so many quote unconscious things. Most of us, aren't even aware of our breathing, never mind, the functioning of every cell, how our kidneys work, what our stomach does to digest that luncheon we just had. We're not thinking about that, but I guess that's like, we've kind of talked about this. It's like by design, because this human design can only, there's a bandwidth of information that it can, process and be consciously aware of. So, that unconscious is a tool for our learning and, development. And that's why, you have these like nervous systems that do so many things without us knowing. All of these cells, what is it? Like like our hormones are the things that maybe even like create those emotional responses in us, right? Because there was an external trigger that, the unconscious went to the memory bank and said, oh, this is what happens during this. So make, this chemical or that chemical. We're not thinking about that, but the body knows. So if a body can keep us alive and working and whatever, of course, these emotions have to have like a, either can keep it balanced or make it unbalanced, which I guess is disease, right?
Yeah, or it could be a mental challenge that we have. Emotional challenge can
Right.
bring us out of balance. Mhm.
Right. But that's like the psychology part, right?
Yeah, but that's just
The
as
mind
important.
and the body are one. We've been taught to view them as separate compartments, but they're in the same compartment.
Yeah, because that mind, what is the mind? The mind is the unconscious. I know that other psychologists have, made a lot of divisions, id, superego, you know, conscious, unconscious, subconscious, preconscious, all these types of terms that that they're using to define our experiences. The one thing that is, I remember in one of my psych books, I read that the author wrote that you will never know what's in your unconscious. But see, that's not accurate because we'll know by way of what things we create.
Right.
What do we see out there? You know, who am I creating and bringing into my life? If I'm bringing somebody that is abusive to me, emotionally, psychologically, physically abusive to me, then that's I got to look at myself. See, we turn and we look at the other person. No, we're looking in the wrong direction. We have to look in our direction because everything is internal. Everything is internal. You create your challenges internally and you create the answers to the challenges internally.
And I guess,
go ahead.
When I was thinking about the podcast this, today, I was thinking about how, a lot of times with this talk of the unconscious, it's, speaking about our shadows and the things we want to hide and those kind of, like that kind of terminology, which, there may be something that are there that we don't necessarily want to face, but I feel like we have to also reinforce this idea of, looking at ourselves and the things that come up, like to embrace them, in a loving way instead of running away from them with fear, right? Because if they are beings, Greta, you said that before, that these emotions are their own, individual beings as we are. They have the life force of their own and it interacts with us because everything is just energy. So, how does it feel when we're in this 3D world and someone rejects us or, doesn't pay attention to us? It doesn't feel so good. And so if we keep doing that to these emotions that are just maybe want some recognition, to be heard and seen, so they can come to light with our consciousness. And maybe, maybe if it's just even something like, okay, what is like this excess weight trying to tell me? And then in your conscious mind, you can decide, okay, it is there must be a reason for it. But what I can do consciously is, maybe take these steps to, do some more healthful processes in my life, so things are recognized. So we're not always running away, I guess.
Well, you don't want to run away because the bottom line is that the less
you don't get anywhere.
Yeah, I mean, there's really technically no place to run.
Right, exactly. 'cause
Where are you gonna
everything's
go?
happening.
You might as well turn around and say, what do they say, bite the bullet or whatever, some verbiage like that. But the thing is, don't run, face it. Be courageous, because that's who we really are. We really are a courageous. Can you imagine some of the things that each one of us has gone through? And we had to be courageous. There are some people, when you listen, you can go on YouTube and listen to pre-birth stories. And you're going to hear some people say they didn't want to come. They didn't want to come here. They actually are aware of that. And you'll hear them say that. Pre-birth stories on YouTube. I didn't want to come here, you'll hear them say. But look how courageous we had to be. We came anyway. So that shows you that each one of us is a strong energy force. We're a strong energy force. I mean, I look back on some stuff that I created for myself. I'd say, good God Almighty, how did I do that? But man, I mean, I've known some people that are dealing with psychological problems, deep psychological problems. That takes courage. We are all courageous. We just think we're not, but we're all courageous. Look at some people who've decided that they want to experience homelessness. I said previously about the young man in high school when I was teaching, and he was a high schooler, he had graduated. I wasn't his teacher, but I was like a mentor to him. And I said, I mean, very bright young man, had a mother and a father in the home. I mean, everything you could think of to help him move forward in life. So I said, well, what are you going to do? I thought he was going to say he's going to get a job or he's going to go to college. Really, I thought he was going to tell me I'm getting ready to go to college and tell me which one he's going to and tell me what he's going to study. That's the normal thing. So I was waiting for him to tell me that. Instead, he told me I want to be homeless. That took a lot of courage to say you want to be homeless. The things that go with that. I mean, people who are homeless, I take my hat off to them, because that is a courageous move to do something like that, to choose that as a lesson. People who are experiencing any form of cancer or any type of ALS or any of those types of debilitating challenges, my God, they're strong people. They're very strong people. They're very determined people. They're very courageous people. Look at that. Tell you the honest God truth, every last one of us is courageous to be here.
Right, but that's kind of circling back to that, that life, your life as a story, right? Like when you run into the conflict, that is like the energy that propels us for moving forward. And some of the most, I think, inspiring stories that all of us have heard is when someone has a conflict, has that, knot in their world, and then overcomes it and transforms it into something else. And we all sit, enraptured by those stories and inspired by those stories. So it's those things that we consider blocks that are actually our fuel, if we can just take a moment to sort of embrace them and look at them with kindness and know what is it that I have to do to, to overcome this, because maybe I don't want it anymore. And we all love that.
Absolutely.
I feel the bigger the challenge, the bigger the lesson.
Really?
Yeah, I do.
You do? Why?
Because I felt that I've learned the most from the most challenging experiences I faced.
Mm.
Now, that doesn't mean to say I learned my lesson always, but I did feel it took a lot more courage to overcome some of these bigger challenges. If you're going to put it in that perspective, it just made me more aware of what I was creating, even before I knew about creation of reality, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, it does. It does. And I think when you bring that up, Carol, I think it also brings up the fact that we don't need to beat up on ourselves for anything. For anything we create, because, like I've said earlier, I've created some that if you want to classify them, they would be some doozies. Okay. But there's no need for me to beat up on myself. I just tell myself, it's okay. I created this. Let me get myself out of it, like you said. Let me learn as much of the lesson as I possibly can. I might not learn it all, but I don't need to beat up on myself because I didn't learn it all. What it just means is give me the courage to go back and let me attempt the learning part of it again. But what continuously, the bottom line is that I have to really love Gretta. I have to really appreciate Gretta, regardless of all the things that I've created. I created to go through a part of my life experiencing alcoholism. I'm not going to beat up on myself. I learned the lesson. I haven't taken a drink for over 40 years, but that was a lesson I had to learn, for me not to want to go there, not to hide, because that's what it was helping me do. It was helping me to hide, not to focus on the other things that I had created. So it was supporting me in my hiding. And I decided I wasn't going to hide anymore. I got to go after it.
And I think the realms even said there are no mistakes. So even challenges that we viewed, and I know we don't like to use the terms positive or negative, but challenges that we've created for ourselves that may not be the most welcomed challenges. Like you said, don't beat yourself up. It's always a learning experience. It's always there for a reason. And if you're aware of it, you can use it to your advantage and move forward, or really move more deeply into yourself.
Mm-hmm.
But before sorry, Greta.
No, I was just going to turn it over to you, Leigh.
Oh, no, I was just going to say, I really love books, so I can fully accept and visualize like library metaphors and analogies. So, to kind of wrap up the story analogy, when we finish that great book, we don't throw the book in the garbage. We treasure it. We just say, okay, like sometimes when we do read the books, right, we learn things, we get tips and tricks and learn from someone else's experience, right? Whether it be fiction or nonfiction. And we take that book that we finished and we put it up on the shelf, right? So that next time we need it, we know where to reference it, right? Sometimes maybe the things that we learned, are part of our lesson is, recognizing it consciously that like, oh, I've done this before. So how do I respond to this current situation in a way that is different, or from how, because I've learned it, so let me get that book down. But sometimes we don't we need to experience the same things as a way to like refine our understanding and our conscious acceptance of that emotion, of that challenge, right? Because one time we get it, okay, great, and then it comes at us again, and then we just start from the beginning and making a new story. So it's like that. It's that process of learning something. Okay, I got it. And the next time, okay, can I react from that what understanding, or am I going to have to, forget it and try it again? But it's like all for our evolution. That's
Absolutely. That's all it's for. Okay, ladies, who's taking us out?
well, thank you, listeners. We will take a short pause and be back, and we will hear what the realm of beings has to say about their quotation. Thank you for joining us. We'll be right back.
Thank you, listeners, for staying with us. As most of you know, we are at that point in the podcast where we are joined by the realm of beings themselves. Realm, are you with us?
Yes, we are. And good morning.
Good morning.
Leigh, and good morning to, or afternoon or evening to our listening audience.
Yes, and it could be at any time of day because time is an illusion.
Absolutely.
Realm, we've been discussing your quote, oops, here we go again. You create people in your life who support where you are at the unconscious level. Would you like to weigh in for us, please?
I think that word, oops, I like that. It really resonates with us to say oops, because many of us have had many oops, look what I did, or oops, look what I did again.
Or maybe you're just Britney Spears fans.
Yep. So it's the one thing about that when it says you create, you bring the person to you. Yes, remember, it is always create, support, create. That is the existence protocol. And what we mean by existence, we're not just talking about the humanoid experience in this reality. We're talking about all realities everywhere where they exist. It is create, support, create. So the thing is, though, we are each creating while we are supporting the other person. That is the relationship. It could be create, support, create with your favorite pet. Or it could be create, support, create with that yard that you have to get out there and prune, cut the grass and plant the flowers, prune the trees, whatever. That's a relationship. So those relationships are create, support, create. Anytime you're interacting with anything, be it a person, be it a place, be it a thing, you still are interacting with it from a create, support, create. One thing is your bodies, your humanoid bodies that you have, you're in a constant state of create, support, create. It's constantly going on because you are in a relationship with every cell of your body. You're in a relationship with yourself. So therefore, you're also supporting yourself in many ways. Because if you don't love yourself, you've got to go out there, and you are going to go out there and support yourself, create all these people, create the things, create all kinds of interesting situations that support you in not loving yourself. So you have a relationship with yourself even. So
that's probably the most important relationship we have.
Absolutely. Because if you want to really think about it, and this would be another podcast, but the relationship that you have is really only the relationship with yourself. The other relationships are illusions.
That's true.
You just think that they are real. So with that in mind, you might as well create relationships that make you feel happy. Why do you want to create relationships that make you feel glum, that depress you? You go down deep into the valley of condition and you want to think, oh my God, what did I do to myself? Stop staying down there. Get up. Come on. Get up. Rise. Rise. You
And
know?
that would
realm.
be, oh, go ahead, Leigh.
Oh no, I was just thinking realm, those, let's say, air quotes, less than happy in exchanges, those are sometimes like the fuel that propel us to change, because like nothing is in a straight line. Everything is just waves and frequency and peaks and valleys. So we can't stay constantly happy, I don't think. That's like,
Well,
we may not, maybe, but what do you think?
anything is possible, Leigh. Anything is possible. All of us have the ability, since we create our realities, we're always in charge of what we're going to create. So some people can stay happy, happy, happy. Don't you have a song that deals with happy, happy? If you're happy and you know it, clap your hands. I remember we went to school with Gretta, and I think she learned that in one of her classes. If you're happy and you know it, stamp your feet, boom, boom. If you're happy and you know it, click your fingers, boom, boom. If you're happy and you know it, and whatever it is, da 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 da.
Really want to show it.
You know it, there you are, boom, boom. I know.
So, Realm, recognizing the challenges, though, the basis and the foundation of that is the understanding of creation of reality, which is what I think we really need to get across to any new listeners that might not be aware of this podcast before. Creation of reality is the basis of learning lessons and understanding that without yourself, there's no you, technically.
Well, absolutely. And to also tag on to that, Carol, is that everybody is creating themselves every day. That's your big creation of reality. It's your creation of self. So how do you want to create yourself? How do you want to present yourself, not to the world, but how do you want to present yourself to yourself? Do you want to be a self that is totally negating self? Or you want to be a self that is understanding, having compassion for self? That's another word for learning to love yourself. Have compassion for yourself. We're always thinking about, let us have compassion for others, but it's important to have compassion for ourselves as well. And we include ourselves in that statement. Compassion for ourselves, a deep sense of inner love of self. So when you create, you're creating things around you that support you in compassion of self. You're loving yourself. Show yourselves that you love yourselves. Create things to show yourself that you love yourselves. That's a lesson unto itself as well. Learning to love yourself is a lesson. It's a big lesson. It's a lesson for everything in existence. We don't care what species you are. You could be Arcturian, you could be Pleiadian, you could be reptilian. We don't care. You're going through the same thing. Learning to love self, learning to appreciate self. Because when you do that, what are you going to create to go along with that? People who support you in being appreciative of self. People who support you in loving self. Yes. Can I hear an amen on that one?
Oh, amen for sure. And hallelujah too.
Thank you.
I think too, part of something that Greta and I discussed earlier this week that perhaps I hadn't even realized is that just saying you love yourself is not enough. You have to, that's like being in a car and the gas is the emotion, the fuel in the car is your emotion. But if you don't put your foot to the gas pedal, the car still doesn't go. So you have to give the physical energy to enforce the love of yourself, to show yourself that you love yourself instead of just saying it. Put the energy behind it.
Absolutely. Show yourself that you love yourself. Show yourself that. Treat yourself. Take yourself out to dinner. You don't have to wait for somebody to do that for you. You can do it for yourself. Take yourself to the baseball game and eat a hot dog, and enjoy the weather. Think of you, do things for yourself. Because then when you're doing things for yourself, guess what? You're going to be creating people also that are going to be doing things for you. And that's prosperity. You've talked about prosperity in this podcast once for 3 weeks, if I remember, and I do remember. So the thing is that love yourselves so that you can create things that love you back. People that love you back. People that show compassion to you as you show compassion to yourself. Somebody wants to say something, I feel.
I felt it was Leigh getting ready to say something.
I did too.
I just wanted to know maybe what your ideas about this library analogy and that, life is a story.
Absolutely. Some people call this experience a drama. Some people call it a play. You're calling it a story. But nonetheless, regardless of what verbiage we use, it is still part of our existence. It is part of our creation of reality. And the book, I thought that was interesting, Leigh. You take the book and you put it on the shelf. And if you want to check it out again, you pull it off and you read another part of the book, or even if you finish the completeness of it, you can start again and reread it. So what you do in when you make your transition is like taking the book back off the shelf and starting to reread it. So that was an excellent analogy that you gave us. We were interested in that, being a book. Your life is a book. Your life here, but you have volumes to it.
Right, and that's like what the unconscious, right? All of the volumes. I mean,
the unconscious is always with you because you are the unconscious. And I am the unconscious, and our collective called the realm of beings is the unconscious. Everyone is the unconscious because there is really only the existence of oneness. One. We are all one, regardless if people don't want to see that or not. Doesn't change it just because you want to. It's like that ostrich, that little animal. He's an interesting, and she's an interesting animal. They like to put their heads in the hole so that they can hide from anything that's coming. They think when they get their heads in the hole, I'm sure they think that they are safe because they don't see any dangers. But we're saying to you today, don't hide. Look at the realities that you create. Look at who you are bringing into your life. Who are you creating because you must create them first to bring them into your life. So look at what you are doing. Look around you. See what you are doing. That's very important. Now, does that meet what you were saying, Leigh?
Yes. Realm, we are getting ready to wrap up the podcast. So I would like to thank the listeners for joining us today. Thank you, Greta. Thank you, Carol. Listeners, this has been Shifting Impressions, Conversations with the Realm of Beings until we create each other again. Be well.
Once again, thanks for joining us at Shifting Impressions, Conversations with the Realm of Beings on TransformationTalkRadio.com. As you have explored today's creation of reality experience with the realm and me, Greta, each of you is being supported by us in further developing the understanding that you are not just an individual existing in linear time and space, but a multidimensional force of infinite possibilities who is connected to all. So begin to create the realities you want. Join us every Friday at 8 a.m. Pacific Time and 11 a.m. Eastern Time on Shifting Impressions at TransformationTalkRadio.com. So long until we create each other again next Friday.